and welcome back to Knits by Lizzy. My name is Lizzy and I'm a vegan knitter from New Hampshire, and this is my channel where I talk about everything that I have been knitting on. And today I have a knitting podcast for you where I'm going to update you on my recent finished objects and WIPs. And I also, for this episode, am going to have my very first sewing finished object, because although this is a knitting focused channel, I have recently dipped my toe into sewing, and so I have my very first sewed finished object, sewed garment, to share with you at the very end. If you are just here for the knitting content, the little bit of sewing that I'm going to go over is just going to be at the very end of the video, so this episode is going to be really 95% knitting. It has been a really long time since my last knitting podcast, I think maybe 6 weeks or more, just because of life things happening. It's been a little crazy over here, some traveling and things like that, so I took a kind of unintentional break. But because of that little break, I do have a ton to talk about. So I have two complete garments to tell you all about, and I do have two WIPs to tell you about. And so I think that honestly this is going to be more exciting of an episode, like for me and hopefully for you too, because it has been so long. So who knows, maybe I will do some more spacing out between my knitting podcasts in the future. Who knows? I am getting into sort of like a crunch time sort of area for my degree. I am a PhD student, so I do think that there might be a little bit fewer episodes coming out on this channel in general for the next few months. But we'll just see how it goes. So let's get on into it. I've got a cup of tea here. And so if you are interested in hearing about my two finished objects and two WIPs, feel free to hang out with us as we chat about some knitting. So first, I'm going to tell you about my finished objects. So you may have noticed that I am wearing one of my finished objects that I've talked quite a bit about on this podcast, so I'm not going to go into crazy depth into this piece, which is the Staffin Sweater by Rebecca Clow. I have been thinking in general about the sort of like format of these episodes, of these knitting podcasts, and just kind of reflecting on what I enjoy when I'm a viewer of knitting podcasts. And I've been thinking about the part of finished objects that in some podcasts someone will give you a ton of just sort of like detailed information and stats about that finished object, which has kind of been my style in the past that I've done. But I've been thinking about how in most knitting podcasts that I enjoy, I actually enjoy, you know, the stories about the finished object or like the knitting experience and that sort of thing. And then of course just like seeing how different patterns look in different yarns and on different people and all that sort of thing, I think is my main draw towards knitting podcasts. So I have decided for this episode, for my finished objects like this one, instead of doing my usual thing where I've in the past gotten out a little chalkboard or a whiteboard and written a bunch of different sort of just basic stats about my finished object, I am not going to do that this episode. And so instead what I'm going to do is I'm going to put all of that information in my Ravelry project. And so if you are interested in knitting these exact same patterns that I'm about to go over, please go check out my Ravelry. It's linked in the description below the video. So if you expand the description, you can see I'll have a link to my Ravelry username, and then you can go look through my projects. And yeah, so I was just thinking about this, and I think like that sort of detailed information, like yarn consumption and cost, or how many yards of yarn I use, that sort of thing, I think it's mainly relevant to a viewer who wants to make this exact same pattern. But if you are just here to have some companionship and like background while you are doing your own knitting, which is what I mainly use knitting podcasts for. I put them on while I'm knitting, and it's nice to be kind of like knitting with someone who's also a knitter. So I really hope that's how other people use my podcast. So I think that for most of the time, that sort of information, detailed information, is not always necessary, but in the few cases where someone is going to make the same exact garment, that sort of detailed information can be helpful for sure. So I'm still going to do all those sorts of like calculations, but instead of making it a segment part of the channel whenever I have a finished object, I'm just going to link it in my Ravelry description. So we'll see how that goes. If you are really sad that I won't be doing the sort of like chalkboard bit anymore, please leave a comment. You know, I am very open to any sort of like constructive criticism about these videos, about what would make them better for you as a viewer. So yeah, please let me know if this is gonna be like a big negative for you that I'm not doing this, but I think this is gonna be a best, at least definitely for me going forward. That sort of like editing takes a lot of time, and I have been thinking about like the time input for that sort of thing and the reward. Like, how much is it actually improving my video to go through that? So that's a long story short to say, I'm trying this out on this episode, and unless I sort of hear any sort of like negative feedback about it, I think I'm going to continue going forward with putting all the detailed information about the finished object in my Ravelry page and have my Ravelry linked in the description instead of going through all the stats in the video. Of course, I'm still gonna let you know what, the basic things like what yarn I used and that sort of thing, but if you want that information, that is where it's going to be located. So let's get into this one. Again, this is the Staffin Sweater by Rebecca Clow, and I actually hosted a knit along for this sweater with my friend Delaney of Black Dog Knits, and it ended on March 15th, and we started it on January 15th, and so we had a little group message of other people that were knitting this pattern, and so it was really nice to have a lot of support and companionship. This pattern, to kind of sum up my recent podcasts over this pattern, it was quite confusing, honestly, the way that it was written, and several different people found it sort of confusing. And what I ended up doing is kind of looking at what the basic stitch pattern repeats were, which are very easy to memorize, and then knowing that it's a raglan, and then just kind of like went off from there and increased until the yoke was what I wanted, and then I split for sleeves and just like kept the pattern repeat going. So I basically took the basic structure and instructions from the pattern that Rebecca had written and then just kind of went off because I've made so many raglans before. And I think that trying to follow all of the charts and all of the very like detailed information in the pattern sort of tripped some people up, and yeah, it's almost like there was too much information, I think. Yeah, I'm not sure how it could have been written better, but the finished piece is good, but the sort of knitting experience for this wasn't that great. So it actually was a super good pattern to have a knit along for, because before I started the knit along, I obviously didn't have the pattern yet, because we started it like right when the pattern came out, and so it was just like, oh, I want to make this pattern, and my friend Delaney also really wanted to knit this as well, and so we thought, okay, well, let's knit together, and why don't we invite other people to knit it with us? So this knit along was driven by just, let's make this pattern that's really cute together, and then it turned into, well, let's support each other for this pattern that is kind of more difficult than it really kind of should be, because it's really like the stitch pattern is not that complicated. You have some 2x2 ribbing, and then you have these faux baubles, which are, I think basically there's like small baubles instead of little baubles. Like you're not putting, in baubles that I've done in the past, you maybe have like 6 or 7 stitches on top of each other. There's not that many stitches on top of each other for these baubles, which means they take less time, but they're slightly smaller. So there's a line of faux baubles, and then there is a diamond motif that's made out of just like moving your purl stitch like up and down to make that diamond motif, and then it repeats from there after some more baubles. So the stitch pattern itself is not that complicated, and so I think, yeah, basically it ended up being more difficult than it needed to be, because there was some confusion in the written pattern. So that is maybe a word of caution if you would like to knit this as well. I think it has been fairly popular because it is so cute. Like, I really do like the design, but I think it to me, it turned into a situation where I really just kind of had to like follow my knitting intuition, and then it was very, very easy. But I think that, again, like you could just really get tripped up on the charts, which happened to I think some people in our group chat. So also because of this knit along, I am going to try to share a few photos here of some WIPs or finished objects from people in our knit along, and so I'll have them kind of going on the screen here as we go. Yeah, basically it was such a joy to have other people to make this pattern with and to connect with, and you know, we haven't like closed the group chat. We're still gonna keep it open for general support for other things. I'm not gonna be adding any new people because the knit along is closed, but yeah, it was really fun first knit along to host, and I definitely will be doing some more knit alongs in the future, probably not for a while, but I can definitely see myself hosting more in the future, maybe slightly larger ones where there are actual prizes, that sort of thing, would be super fun. So for my Staffin sweater, I knit this out of holding 2 yarns together. I held Hobbii Amigo, which is a DK weight acrylic, with Lamy Yarn Soft Sensations, which is a acrylic and polyester blend to make a mohair. And for the pattern definition, this was the wrong yarn to use. It does not have very good stiff definition, probably because of the mohair, and also just because it's like really soft and drapey, and it really, yeah, it didn't really kind of have that much structure to it. And so if I was to do this again to highlight this pattern, I would have chosen a cotton and acrylic blend or a cotton instead. And so that was one lesson learned, and because of the lack of stitch definition, that was another sort of negative to my knitting experience that obviously has nothing to do with the pattern. That's like my own mistake for yarn choice. As I was knitting it, I was like, as I've mentioned on this channel a couple times, really wasn't sure how it was going to turn out in the end, and was kind of worried about this project in general. But I have to say, in terms of wearability, this yarn choice was amazing. I finished this a while ago. I think I finished it like right before the end of the knit along, maybe like March 10th or something like that. And it's well into April now, so I've finished it about a month ago. And I have been wearing it so much, and I've been wanting to wear it all the time because it is so soft and so cozy. I absolutely love it, and I do think, like, obviously you can still tell that it's kind of like blocked of different like blocks of texture. You can't see the diamonds very well, again because of the yarn choice, but I don't think I mind that much because it is so cozy and warm, and it's still super cold here in New Hampshire. It is Sprinter, where it's like a mix between winter and spring here. It actually snowed yesterday, which was very disappointing because it's time for snow to be done. We have snow since like, I think our first snow this year was on Thanksgiving, so end of November until like over midway through April that's a lot of snow. But that's just what happens here. So it's still really cold, still definitely wearing tons of sweaters, and I've been wearing this way more than I even anticipated. And I think it's because of how soft and cozy it is. And the other reason, which this is like a new revelation for me, is because I think it's also because the sleeves are really long. And so when I was knitting the sleeves, I wanted to have them kind of match the body in terms of the pattern repeat. And so I did an extra whole pattern repeat on the sleeves instead, or compared to the body. And so I ended up making them slightly longer than I think I would have if I was just like knitting stockinette, but it actually turned out better that way, because it has definitely added to the general coziness of this sweater. And I think it's part of the reason why I've been wearing it more. And so I think that I really need to be knitting my sleeves a lot longer. I have been making them, so like you can see that these end like partway through my hand here. And in general, when I've been knitting sleeves, like pretty much every single other sweater I've ever knit, I've been finishing my sleeve like kind of like right at my wrist, or like a teeny tiny bit into my palm, like right here. So like probably an extra 5 centimeters shorter than what this sleeve is. And I am definitely going to continue to experiment with way longer sleeves because of how much I like this. I have been making sleeves shorter, like that length, in the past, because my logic was if the sleeves end here, then they will be more user friendly. Like I could, you know, be writing with a pen or doing dishes or whatever. But I just roll these up. I just fold them up when I need to do something like that, where I don't want the sweater like getting in the way. Or if I'm at work and I really need like a lot of, really don't want like my sleeves getting into things, I just take the sweater off for that point and then put the sweater back on. So yeah, so that was something that was sort of accidentally great. So I think that's part of the reason why I've been wearing this so much. So this, I was just talking to Delaney about this finished object and explaining my feelings about it to her, and she said, oh, so this has been a product knit rather than a process knit, and that is absolutely the perfect way to describe this project for me. I really honestly didn't enjoy the process of making it as much as I thought I would. Like I said, because of my lack of stitch definition, and then the pattern was being confusing and all these things. But this sweater, I've been wearing it so much, and so the product has been really, really great. So I'm in general more of like a 50-50 or like 60-40 process knitter to product knitter. Like I do really want to enjoy the process. Like I can't be solely motivated by the product. I do want some fun in the knitting process. So this is probably one of the fewer projects where it's like way more weighted towards the product side. But that's how it turned out, is that this was a product knit instead of a process knit. But there are, you know, there's a time for that, and it's still good in its own way because the product is so nice. So that is my Staffin Sweater by the Cray Abaya, and if you want the tons of details about how long this took me, or how much it cost, the yarn cost, or the yardage that I used for the size that I knit, please check out my Ravelry, and all of those details will be in there if you are interested in making this same pattern too. My next finished object is the Pearly Cardigan by Leah Amber, which I test knitted for her, and I test knitted size 3, and I made this cardigan for my older sister, which I have right here, so I haven't sent it out yet. Her birthday is in June, so I think I'm gonna end up making this just like a really early birthday gift when I send it to her. But yeah, this was a test knit, and just this past weekend, this pattern went live, and so if you are interested in knitting this pattern, it is now out there. You can go and knit this, and in terms of speaking of process versus product, this was a really fun process knit. Like the process of making this cardigan was super fun and engaging. It's definitely one of those, it's one of those patterns where there's something going on like pretty much all of the time, and so if that is something that you prefer in your knitting, I highly recommend this pattern. I don't think that it's a like new beginner sort of pattern, because there's a lot of I-cord edging, which you'll see when I show it to you. So if you're an absolute beginner, I don't think this is the pattern for you, but if you are like an early intermediate beginner or above, like totally, this pattern's great. So I will show this to you here, the finished piece. So as you can see, this is a stockinette cardigan, but the really interesting part of it is that it has these like piping edges all the way around like each segment of the cardigan, and so this is made out of just doing I-cords. The construction of this cardigan is a saddle shoulder, so let me just show that to you here. So there's the saddle that you kind of start with, and so you also can use the saddle as kind of like your gauge swatch, because you knit it on its own and then you pick up stitches and all these things. So I had never done an official saddle shoulder before. I have done a couple times, we got a kitty. I have done a couple times a contiguous construction, I think it's called, where it has a kind of similar fit to a saddle shoulder, where you've got like a stripe of knitting where there's no increases or anything, and then a bunch of increases, but those constructions were seamless, like you don't have that much picking up of stitches. But this was a much more, I think, classic saddle shoulder. Again, this is my first one, so I'm not exactly sure, but I think this is a more classic saddle shoulder construction, where you had your saddle shoulder as like its own distinct piece, and then you did picking up of stitches to expand off of that, and then when you make the other one, you cast on new stitches and make like your own separate saddle for that part of the garment, and then you continue going off of there. So so that was fun to learn a new construction. There are a bunch of short rows in this pattern, both like in the back and like on the sleeves to make sure that it fits really well. So there definitely has been a lot, Leah put a lot of, you know, time and consideration into making this fit really well. And I do think that the fit, especially like saddle shoulders in general, the fit's really good. So this fit is really, really good. The way that this garment is styled is that the sleeves are pretty oversized and the body is cropped. So obviously if you don't like cropped things, it's really easy just to make the body longer, but as this is a test knit, I just followed the instructions exactly for size 3, which is what I made for my older sister. So it's definitely cropped, but has these nice cozy oversized sleeves. I do think that if I was to knit this again, not for a test knit where I wanted to follow things exactly, just for my own personal style, I think I would make the sleeves slightly smaller. So I really enjoyed the circumference of the finished like cuff. Like there was a lot of decreases to have the sleeve end at like a really good wrist circumference length. So I think I would just pick up fewer stitches around the armhole opening for the sleeve, and then just decrease to the same number of final stitches, which would just mean I would be doing less decreases because I picked up less at the beginning. So that's just my very small like personal style preference. It has nothing to do with the pattern. That's just like how I like my sleeves to be. So yeah, so I think if I was making this again for myself, I would just pick up I would just start with a few less stitches for the sleeve, but the sleeve still it's super cozy having this really like oversized sleeve. So my sister, who I knit this for, I texted her at the beginning of doing this test knit. I asked her what colors would she want a cardigan in, and if there was a contrast color, what would she want? And one of the options she gave me was light blue with cream highlights. And so my older sister is definitely responsible for this amazing color choice. I do think that I don't know, it's really, honestly, it's very springy. It works out for spring. And I don't know, there's something about it that's like both, it's like girly and sophisticated. I wonder if like I made it in a different color if I would still feel that way. So it might be because of the construction or these buttons, but that's how I feel. And I do think that that's like a kind of like sophisticated style, I think fits my older sister really well. So I really hope she likes it. I think she will. Speaking of buttons, let me show you. Get my face out of there. So I picked up these white shimmery buttons in Victoria, British Columbia over the holiday break that I took around Christmas. I ended up going to a shop that was like mainly focused on buttons, which was very, very fun. And I had just signed up for this test knit. I didn't even have the yarn yet, but I had signed up for the test knit, and so I knew that I was going to need buttons, and I knew the colors. My sister had already told me the colors that she wanted. I just didn't have the yarn yet, and so I knew that my main color was going to be blue and my accent was going to be cream or white, and so I wanted to get some white buttons. And again, because of the kind of like girly and sophisticated sort of style that I was going for, I thought these kind of like shimmery pearl looking buttons would be a good way to go, and I do think that they fit perfectly with this cardigan. Again, I'm really happy with them. It's that same button shop that I got the really big brass rose button that I used for my younger sister's Jose hood. I got those at the same time, and so it's very like satisfying to buy things for a purpose and then actually use it for them and like get it out of stash, and the buttons can go like live their destiny on this cardigan. It feels very nice. So yeah, this was a really engaging knit because of all of the I-cords. I will say that you do pick up stitches like all of the time, because you pick up stitches to knit the sort of like stockinette part, and then you have to pick up stitches again to knit the I-cord, and then if you're adding on to that I-cord, you pick up stitches again. So this is what keeps this pattern really engaging and really fun, in my opinion. You're always like, oh, I'm on to the next section, which I really enjoyed. But I do think that if someone like absolutely hates picking up stitches, which I know that there are some knitters out there who just like, that's their least favorite part of knitting. If picking up stitches is your least favorite part of knitting, this pattern is probably not for you. But if you really like engaging knits and something that's not like super complicated like cables or lace or something, but you want a little bit of something to like keep you going instead of like basic stockinette, this is your, so yeah, I think that's all I really have to say about the Pearly cardigan. It is out now, so you can go knit this for yourself. I'm really excited to send this to my sister, and hopefully she likes this little cropped cardigan. Oh, I forgot to mention the yarn. The yarn that I knit this sweater out of was Cascade Yarn's Cherub sock in the white color and the ecru. The white color I used to hold with a light blue mohair from Lamy Yarn Soft Sensations, and then the ecru color was what I held double to make the I-cord edging, so it is a slightly different color than the white that I used for the body. I really think that these colors went well together. The Cascade Yarn's Cherub sock is a sock yarn, it's a fingering weight, and so this pattern's knit at a DK weight, and so I had a fingering and a lace held together for DK for the body, and then fingering held double for the I-cord edging to also make like about a DK. So that worked out pretty well, and again, I'm really happy with my with my older sister's color choices. I think it's really beautiful. So again, if you are interested in the other nitty-gritty details of this project, please feel free to check out my Ravelry, which is linked in the description. I am very excited to say that one of my WIPs that's on my needles right now is the Bookclub Cardigan by Sari Nordlund. I had the Bookclub Cardigan in a plans video in August of 2024. And I was thinking about that cardigan, knitting this cardigan, even before I added it to that plans video. So it has been probably pretty close to a full year that I've been wanting to knit this cardigan, and I'm so glad that I finally feel like I have, have the time to do it. I've done, between October and through March, I did quite a bit of gift knitting, and so it feels really good to have this cardigan that I've really been wanting to knit on my needles. So let me show you. This cardigan, I have basically finished the yoke, and I'm a tiny bit into the body here. Let me just show you. Yeah, maybe like 4 centimeters or something into the body. So this cardigan is a very popular cardigan by Sari Nordlund. I mean, all of her patterns are really popular, but I think this one was especially popular. There was a cow for it, I think pretty close to when it first came out, like many months ago. But you've probably seen this cardigan on lots of other podcasts. It's so beautiful. That's why it's so popular. So this is an all over cabled cardigan that I think the star of the show of this cardigan is these diamond repeats, really big diamond cables. There we go, that are paneling each side of the front, and then there are 2 on the back. I've never knit this kind of cable before, and it's really fun and pretty intuitive, where you're like, okay, I'm gonna move these stitches this way, this way, this way. Oh, I'm at the end, and I'm gonna move the stitches this way, this way, this way. So it's definitely, even for a cable pattern, you have to pay attention more than usual, because for some cable patterns you're doing the same cabling over and over and over again, and this cable pattern, while for the adjacent cables here, this is just the same thing over and over again, but for the diamond you have to keep track of whether you're going this way or whether you're going this way, and so it's definitely not the sort of pattern that you can zone out to. You kind of need to be paying attention. Although I will say that it's been very easy to memorize, so it's very intuitive, like I said, which way the cables are gonna go. It's just, you need to make sure that you know which way you're going. So it's been really fun and just so satisfying to watch this motif appear. I was a bit worried for a while that my yarn color choices weren't gonna be good to really show it off, especially after I just knit this, which didn't show off the pattern as much as I wanted. So when I was in the beginning of this project, before there was a lot of fabric, I was like, oh, is this stitch definition good enough? I don't know. But now that I have a bunch of it, I think you can see the cables very clearly, so I'm very satisfied. So let me show you the yarn that I'm using.
They come in the background.
So I'm holding this very stringy DK weight brown yarn that is Hobbii Kind Feather, which I actually purchased in Denmark when I visited this past summer. So I actually was able to go to a Hobbii store in Denmark and look at the colors and pick it out, which was very fun. And so this is a DK weight acrylic from Hobbii. It's different from Hobbii Amigo, which is another acrylic from Hobbii that is a DK weight. But I will say that the Hobbii Amigo is a bit lighter and kind of like, not super fluffy, but like a little bit fluffier. And this one is slightly like shinier, I would say, and maybe like a tiny bit more dense for the same amount of yarn weight, like the same thickness of yarn. So I do think that when you use Hobbii Amigo, which is what I held for this, you get a slightly lighter garment. But for this cable project, I think this has been helping with that stitch definition. And then I'm holding that that yarn with this Lamy Yarn Soft Sensations. I know you're surprised. Vegan mohair. It's made of acrylic and polyester in this brown color. And as you can see, while they're both brown, they're not the exact same shade of brown. And so that's why I was a little worried about the marling that these two browns have, that it would hide the beautiful cabled pattern, but it's not. I think it's adding a really cool definition, especially for the let me zoom in on the moss section, which this cardigan has like these cables that is bordered by moss stitch, which is like very common for cables. But here's the moss stitch, and I think it's really cool the sort of depth that the marling is giving to the moss stitch. It makes them really look like stones or something, or like a dirt gravel, not gravel because it's not gray, but like a stone dirt path or something. It's very cool. So I'm actually very happy with my yarn choice. I also wanted to quickly mention that for the cabling, I've been trying a little bit to cable without a cable needle, and I've been able to do it for the diamond part where I'm moving 2 stitches and 1 stitch, but for some reason, as soon as I go up to the other cable, which is adjacent, so this cable right here, this one, when I try to do this one, which is 2 stitches over 2 stitches, that extra stitch makes me like all of a sudden I'm about to drop it. So I've been able to cable without a cable needle for one of them, but for the other cable, I'm using this wooden cable needle that I got from Knit Picks a while ago. And actually, when I was in Victoria, I bought a sort of hooked shaped cable needle that was plastic, because I thought that it would work better than this straight wooden cable needle, but I very quickly realized, maybe just because I knit mainly with acrylic, that the plastic cable needle and the acrylic was it was like falling off very, very quickly. I only did like maybe 2 different cabling with that cable needle before I realized like this is not gonna work out. So I went back to my trusty wooden cable needle that I got from Knit Picks, like almost a year ago or more. It's got these little notches in it. I don't know if you can tell. Oh yeah, that's focusing. It's got these little notches in it, and so your stitches will stick on the little notches, and so they're not going to fall out. So it works really well, and this is pretty long, so if you needed to do like if you were cabling like, I don't know, 6 stitches over 6 stitches or something huge, this would work really well. And I think I had this when I did my Arctic Light sweater, which is a ton of different cables. That's a pattern by Katova Kika. I believe I was using this same exact cable needle, and there's a 4/4 cabling in that pattern, and this was totally fine. So that's what I've been using to do my cabling, and when I am not using the cable needle, what I've been doing is that I just kind of stick it into the fabric here, like this. Let me put it in. I just kind of like weave it into the fabric. Alright, there we go. Weave it in the fabric like this, and it actually stays really well. Like, I took this project on a plane. I did some traveling since we last spoke, and it was, this project got like stuffed into a bag, or like, oh no, we're landing, I need to get off. Very quickly, like, shove my cable needle through the fabric, shove it into my backpack, and I also was using it like knitting on this like on a bus between the airport, and you might think that with all of the like rummaging around with this project that this cable needle would have like gone missing, but it actually sticks really well just by weaving it in through the into the fabric there. Just kind of trugging along on this project. It does take a long time to go through one row when it's a cable row. Now that I'm on the body, like maybe 15 minutes or 20 minutes, something like that, like a pretty long time. So I do think that this project is going to take me a while, but it is a very satisfying project. Like I said, I've been meaning to make this for so long, and it's so cool to watch this pattern come out. I have noticed that when I've tried it on, and you'll see in my B-roll footage here, that the yoke seems like pretty shallow, and I even extended the front and back sections before you join them. I made them like a couple centimeters longer. So I am knitting size 2, but I used size 3's recommendation for the yoke depth basically, because there's a bunch of comments on Ravelry that these sleeves are super tiny. And so I didn't want the sleeves to be too tiny. So I increased my front and back lengths before I joined them so that the yoke depth would be a little bit longer. And even with that, I feel like the yoke depth is pretty tight to like my armpits. So we'll see what happens in the end. Again, this hasn't been blocked, and so it's kind of like, it's pretty like structured and tight. And so it might, you know, get a little bit more loosey-goosey once I block it, and yeah, that it might all work out in the end. We'll see, but that is one thing I've noticed. But it also means that the body is going to take me a really long time because that yoke depth is pretty shallow, and I don't think I want to make this super cropped. I am definitely thinking this is like very outerwear sort of situation because it's so thick, and there's lots of cables, and I'm going to be treating it a little bit like my Esther jacket by Petite Knit that I made, which I use mainly as an outerwear sort of piece. So that's what I'm envisioning for this piece as well. So honestly, maybe I should have gone up to a size 3 to make it more oversized, but I'm not going back now. I'm knitting a size 2. Maybe in blocking, I'll like pull it out. Which if I'm gonna want to stretch it widthwise, that probably means that I need to lengthen it even more, because if I stretch it widthwise, that's gonna like bring the fabric up. So yeah, I think I'm gonna knit this for a long time, like a long time measurement wise and long time time wise. So yeah, you guys will be seeing a bit of the Bookclub cardigan here, but that's okay because it's so gorgeous and I can talk about it all day long. So yeah, that's the Bookclub cardigan by Sari Nordlund. My next whip is the Sookie cardigan by Woozy by Celine. So Celine, I actually don't know what her last name is, but I think most people know who I'm talking about. Woozy by Celine. She has an amazing YouTube channel that I'm sure lots of people follow. If you don't follow her, you should totally check her out. She's hilarious. And she very recently came out with this pattern. Like, I basically bought it, I think I bought it the day, or like the weekend that it came out, and cast it on very shortly afterwards. So this pattern just recently came out, and I mentioned this pattern in my spring plans video, and look, I've knit it. So this is a stockinette cardigan, again by Celine, Woozy by Celine, and I've gotten so far in this in like a pretty, like relatively like short amount of time, because of the stockinette of it all, and it's a pretty big gauge. Like I think it's 16 or 17 stitches. So it's got a pretty big gauge. It's on 5mm needles, so it's going pretty quick. And with all of my like traveling, there was times when it just made more sense to be working on a stockinette project. And so I think I had not even finished the back panel when I left for my trip, and that was only like 2 weeks ago. And now this is like, I've completely, yarn down. I've completely finished the body here. So it is a drop shoulder construction. So you start by knitting the back panel, and then there's some diagonal shaping for the shoulders here, and then you pick up for each shoulder. And then once you knit the fronts, you join in the body and then just knit back and forth until you are done with the body. And then there's some ribbing for the hem, and I finished it with an Italian bind off with the setup rows. And then I also have completed the button band, which is double knitting. And I've said this on the channel before, but I'm gonna say it again, that I actually love double knitting. It does take like kind of a long time, but honestly, I feel like not as long as you think. And when I do double knitting, I just like kind of like get into this groove of going back and forth, and it's just like so satisfying to have this very like nicely structured squishy thing start to form, and I feel like it just, double knit button bands like add just like an extra layer of like professionalism, I think, to hand knit cardigans, and I absolutely love how they look. So I'm a big fan of double knitting, and I think they're absolutely worth their while, and honestly, I think the process of them is still fun. I think that's not a super popular opinion. I think most people don't like double knitting, but I love it. So that was a big plus for me. So we have double knitting for both of the button bands, but I would say the main other feature of this cardigan that like most other cardigans don't have is that instead of double knitting for the collar, you actually make a stockinette collar that you fold over and sew down. So I've done that as well. So it's not a very long one, but here is the collar, and I've done one, where's the button? There's one buttonhole, we fold it. There's one buttonhole in the collar, and then of course the rest down the button band. I did the kind of buttonholes that I think they look really nice, but you have a bunch of ends to weave in the double knit button band, but I think totally worth it. So I had never done a stockinette double folded collar before. I have done lots of 1x1 ribbing folded collars, and we'll see how I feel in the end. But now that I've done it, I'm glad I did it to try it. But now that I've done it, I honestly wish I had just done double knitting around the collar and like picked up for a new double knitting, because it's not supposed to be knit. The way that this is designed, I don't think it would like fit over you very well if you did double knitting like continuously all the way up one button band all the way up one button band around the collar and down the other button band. Yeah, I don't think it would sit very nicely around your collar, which is why you do like one button band, another button band, and then the collar like all as separate things. But I wish that, and if I did this again, I would not do the stockinette double folded collar, because in the end, just like double knitting, you end up getting the same look where you've got two sides of stockinette together. So if you knit one layer of stockinette and fold it over, that's the same as double knitting. And I despise hand sewing down double folded things, even though I do it for like 1x1 ribbing. Like this one is double folded, so I do it because it looks nice, but I don't enjoy doing it. And I'm always very worried that I'm gonna have things like twisted. So if you fold one row not exactly folded over completely on the row that it like started from, then your collar is like slanted, and that like does not look very good. So there's that, which is just like a process thing. Like it's not that bad, it's just a collar, so it's not like very long, but it's not my favorite thing. And then the other thing is that you have to, because there's a buttonhole, you have to line them up. Because there's a buttonhole, you have to make sure that the buttonhole that you've made like on the bottom part and the top part, when you fold it over, that those buttonhole openings meet, so that your button is going to be able to go through. And so I still need to, I've sewn it down like around here, but there's still like the openings right here from where I folded it, right there. So when I use these ends to sew down this collar, I'm also, I think, gonna go in and try to like more define the different sides of the buttonhole so that they for sure line up all of the time. And I think that's something that could have very easily not been an issue if I had just done a double knitted collar and done the same buttonhole method that I did for all the rest of the buttonholes. So I don't know if I'm like being naive and missing something about, like, I don't know if there's a reason why it's not good to do a like separate double knitted collar. Yeah, like if there's something, I don't understand the benefit of doing a stockinette double folded collar instead of double knitting. So that is my recommendation. If you have similar opinions to me and you hate sewing things down, if I made this again, which honestly I might, because this cardigan's super quick and the gauge is really big, so I can definitely see this being a pattern that I return to again and again, and just being kind of like one of those basic patterns that you go back to and make lots of different versions out of, kind of like the Monday sweater by Petite Knit. This might end up being my large gauged cardigan pattern that I go back to again and again if the fit is as good as I think it's going to be, but so far it seems like it will, and obviously it's pretty easy to change things like length and that sort of thing. So yeah, I think that yeah, I can definitely see this being something that I go back to again, except for the collar. I think I will do different versions of that, but honestly, like, a pattern like this is pretty easy to modify. So if you, like, for example, say you hate double knitting, you could totally make the button band a ribbed button band, or you could make it a 2x2 ribbed button band. You could make it like look kind of like the what is it, like the Eva cardigan by Petite Knit. I think that's like 2x2 finishings on stuff. So I think like one of the benefits of making something yourself, of hand knitting a garment instead of going out and buying it, is like you can make it exactly what you want. So you can mix and match things from different patterns and put them in and make everything like exactly the way that you want it. I really like encourage and hope to inspire people to do that too, because let the creative juices flow. Like, world is your oyster, the knitting pattern is your oyster. So all that to say, going very well so far, except for that little collar issue. I am knitting the very first size for this. There's a lot of positive ease built into this pattern, so I think this is going to give me like 15, almost 20 centimeters, I think, of positive ease by knitting size 1. So so yeah, there's a lot of ease into the pattern. If I remember correctly, there's a lot of sizes too. I think there's 11 sizes in this pattern, which is great. And in the pattern, she includes tester photos at the very end from a range of sizes, and so you can even like while you're looking at the PDF and not even on Ravelry, you can see, okay, well, what is this sweater, or what is this cardigan gonna look like on a body that's similar to mine? Like, you can look through the tester photos and like find your size and like see what it looks like. So I thought that was really cool, and I haven't seen that in a pattern before, like having tester photos like actually in the PDF. I thought that was really cool. So so far, besides the color situation, definitely recommend this pattern. So Sookie Cardigan by Celine, Woozy by Celine, going pretty good. So those are all of my knitted finished objects, and like I said, I do have one sewing finished object, but I'm actually gonna go into my acquisitions first so that I can go over all of the yarn I've gotten, and then I'm gonna move into sewing, so that if someone's like really not interested in sewing, that's all gonna be at the very end of this video. So now let's talk about some yarn. First off, I have a very exciting acquisition, and that is my very first hand-dyed yarn that I've ever gotten. So this is a sock set from Terrapin Fiberworks, which is a completely vegan hand dyer. So all of her yarns are cotton or some other kind of like plant fiber blends, except for her a particular sock yarn which has some nylon in it. Let's see, so there's different bases, right, like other hand dyers. So this is an Anacostia is the sock base, and so it is 40% cotton, 40% tinsel, and 20% elastic. I'm pretty sure tinsel, I'll put on the screen and correct myself, but I think that might be some kind of like, not bamboo, but like wood sort of thing. But yeah, it's a blend, and I very intentionally wanted to get a blend of things, not just cotton, because I've had some issues I've made one pair of socks that was like 90% cotton and only 10% nylon, and it did not go very well. And I also wanted to get this sock set in this exact base to test it out for if I wanted to make a garment down the line, because what I can envision, because the hand dyed, of course, is like very expensive, is getting a fingering weight hand-dyed yarn and then holding it with a mohair to get like a DK weight gauge, but not have to spend as much money to fill out like a completely DK weight worth of yarn, because I would only take a couple skeins because fingering weight, there's so many yards in fingering weight, it'd only take a couple skeins in order to get enough yardage to make a like sweater, for example. And so this is my introduction into hand-dyed yarn, which I'm very excited about. I honestly didn't know for a long time that I was gonna even have the option of working with any hand-dyed yarn as a vegan knitter, because it's like obviously most of the hand dyers out there dye with wool, but this hand dyer only dyes with plant-based fibers, plus like again like a little bit of elastic in this one for the socks. So that was just really exciting, and definitely paying a lot of money for something that is literally art, and supporting a vegan business. That's like aligns with all my values and those sorts of things. So even though this is a lot more money than I spend on, for example, other sorts of yarns that I knit with, especially because I knit with acrylic, it's really cheap. I feel justified and like good about spending that money. It's not something that I can do all the time, with where like I'm at in life financially, but it is fun to do sometimes. And honestly, I'm just excited to be able to like participate in that side of knitting where you get to go into hand-dyed yarns, which is something that I, for a while, didn't think that it was like even an opportunity for me. So that's really exciting. This, like I said, is a sock set, and so we have the main color. It's like this blend of like cream and purple and green. My two favorite colors are purple and green, so you can see why I chose this. And then there is the contrasting knitting skein in this amazing like sage color, which I really like this color. I can see myself getting this color in like a larger skein and making either like a tank top or using this and holding it with mohair to make a sweater. Yeah, potager and sage. So I think potager is the name of this color, and sage is the name of this color. This is part of her like tea themed. It's Terrapin Fireworks is the hand dyer. I don't know if I mentioned that. Terrapin Fireworks, and she has some like tea themed sock sets going on right now, and so this was the kind of yarn that you kind of like sign up for it, and then she sees how many orders she has, and then she takes the time to make all of the yarn. And so I got this like 6 weeks after I ordered it, and so the anticipation builds. But I will say that on her website she does have some like in stock yarn, and so if you want something right now, you can go look through her website, and she has like various colorways that are in stock that you just like any other online store, like you just buy it and she ships it. And so we'll see how much I end up liking this, and if I do like it a lot, I might be a situation where I'm gonna really have to like hold myself back from doing that. But for something like a tank top, I might only need like one skein or less, or like 1 to 2 skeins, I mean. I might be able to convince myself for that, or it could be like, I don't know, my birthday's in May, I might use that, I don't know, we'll see. So I'm gonna be making a pair of socks out of this eventually, and using my contrasting color for heels and toes. I might do like I've never done like the scalloped edge, like the frill, no, not frill where there's like a lot of extra stitches, but I think it's called scalloped edge, where it's like circles as your collar instead of ribbing. Might try that with this, but maybe that would look weird with the like variegation of the potager, but I'm kind of interested in doing that. But I'm definitely gonna do something very basic, like either just stockinette, or I might do 3x1 ribbing, which I've never done in a sock, which that might be really fun. But yeah, my first introduction into hand-dyed yarn, which is very exciting. Again, Terrapin Fiberworks. Oh, I wanted to show you. Isn't that a cute label? Like again, it's like a tea themed thing. Yeah, super cute. Okay, my next two yarn acquisitions have a theme that wasn't really intentional. So yeah, I'll just get right into it. Here they are. Do you know what the theme is? It's yellow. So I actually, I guess tangent before I even get into these. You may have seen on those Twins Who Knits podcast that they're hosting a butter yellow cowl that starts April 15th. And I actually purchased both of these yarns before that announcement even came. And so obviously I'm going to participate in the cowl because I was like unintentionally preparing for it, because I guess I was just really feeling like knitting with yellow. I bought this one first and then this one. So I still need to decide what I'm gonna do with this one, but I guess got caught on that yellow train without even realizing it. Like, I guess I'm being influenced by Instagram or something. I don't know. It doesn't matter because I'm excited to knit with it. So the first yarn is Drops Bell, and I believe this is the color Daisy. It says color 4, but I think it's called Daisy. And I got enough of this to knit a Tolsta tee by Rebecca Clow, the Creabea, which I'm super excited to try. This was another thing that was on my spring and summer like knitting plans. The gauge is really big on that tee, and so it should go really fast in contrast to like every other warm weather knitting thing out there where it's like 28 stitches for 10 centimeters and takes forever. The Tulsa tee, I think part of the reason why it's so popular is because it's like a pretty quick knit. So I'm really excited to knit with this, to knit that pattern and to knit with Drops Bell. I've used Santa's Garden Line in the past, this is the like Drops equivalent of the same sort of fiber content. So this is made up of 53% cotton, 33% viscose, and 14% linen. So it's a blend of a bunch of different plant fibers. And so I'm really excited to compare this to Line, which I made a top out of last year. And see if it is the same, because this is way, way cheaper. So yeah, I'm just gonna make a basic, I'm not gonna do stripes or anything fancy with the Tulsa tee. I'm just gonna make a yellow t-shirt, and my goal is I need to make sure that I knit it long enough. I wanna be able to tuck it into things, because I made a striped t-shirt out of Santa's Garden Line last year, and I made it too short. It's like fun cropped, but I can't tuck it in, and I think I wear it slightly less than I would otherwise if I made it longer. And because of the big gauge on the Tulsa, I should be able to make this long enough without like feeling like I'm knitting on it forever. So that's gonna be cast on like soonish maybe, but I think maybe towards the end of spring, because it's still, like I said, really cool here in New Hampshire. Yeah, Drops Bell. And then the other yarn is Cascade Yarn Sarasota, which is a cotton and acrylic blend, which was inspired honestly by this project, knitting the Staffin, because the stitch definition in this yarn that I chose for the Staffin was so bad that I really wanted to see what it was like to knit with a cotton and acrylic blend for the stiff definition. So I made a swatch that is based off of this Storm Sweater by Petite Knit, and you can see hopefully that this stitch definition is crazy. I held it double. It's a DK weight yarn. I held it double to even further like pop it out. And so at first I was thinking of the Storm Sweater because I already had that in my Ravelry queue, but now I don't really know, because the Storm Sweater, it's a blocked drop shoulder. This is a raglan, but it's a block drop shoulder, like really similar to the Staffin. So I was thinking to myself, like, do I really want two sweaters, at least right now, that like look pretty similar? The vibes would be very different because the stitch definition is better, and this is like doesn't have a mohair in it, so it'd be less fluffy, more like structured. So they would be different types of sweaters. But then also holding this double, this is gonna be like a pretty warm knit, and it is hopefully gonna get warmer soonish. So now I'm not sure. So I'm still debating what I'm gonna use with this really amazing light yellow. I was thinking, the two other things I was thinking was the Vivi cardigan by Sari Nordlund. I'm definitely in like a cardigan spree right now. I just showed you I just had a finished object, and I have both of the things on my needles right now are cardigans. I think I'm like overcompensating from only knitting sweaters for a long time. But yeah, I was thinking the Vivi cardigan, which is really, really cute, by Sari Nordlund, which is like a cabled cardigan. I also came across a sweater called I think just called like the ribbed sweater. Let me double check the correct name and designer for you. I liked it so much that I went and purchased the pattern already, but now I'm still second guessing what I want to actually do for this yarn. Let me see here. Yeah, okay. So I was also thinking the Rib Stitch sweater by Noriko Ichikawa. It is a brand new release, April 2025 release, and it is in a broken rib stitch. Oh, it's pretty cute. I'll definitely have a picture up here. It's pretty cute, and it's got twisted ribbing on the finishing. And I do feel like it would look pretty good in yellow. The sample is in like cream. The gauge is 19 stitches and it's supposed to be a worsted yarn, and this is DK. I definitely don't have enough yarn to hold this like completely double for the whole thing. So I might have to play with gauge and stuff. I might have to knit it at a tighter gauge and then go up a size to get the same size that I need, because I do think that I have enough yarn to go up a few sizes than I would if I actually had a 19 stitch gauge, but I just can't hold it double for my size, for how much yarn I have. I have 6 skeins of this, and I think I've got like 1,800 yards or something like that. So, yeah, I could knit at like maybe like 23 or 24 something stitch gauge and just go up a few sizes and like figure out, I have the pattern already, so I could just like look at the number of body stitches and then like divide it by my gauge to figure out which size I need to follow in order to get the sized sweater that I want. So I might play with some gauge stuff to do that, but yeah, really I should just make it some swatches and compare it to my Storm sweater swatch here. But it's really soft. Like the cotton and acrylic blend is like so dreamy. It's like squishy. It really does look like butter. So the butter, this is perfect for the butter yellow cow. So those are my yarn acquisitions. And so now I'm going to get into my tiny bit of sewing. So I got a sewing machine for Christmas unexpectedly and amazingly. I had been wanting to go into sewing for a bit, but I was kind of overwhelmed by how much stuff I needed to get. And so my sister kindly gifted me a sewing machine for Christmas, which was like, obviously, like that's the biggest hurdle into going into sewing. And so I was able to start this new hobby. Honestly, really bad timing for me for Joann's going out of business. It's the only place that I can get fabric in my town, and now it's going out of business, so I went and bought a bunch of fabric from them. But the first, my first ever sewing project was these little boxer shorts. So this is a free pattern by Rosery Apparel. So she has a huge YouTube channel, sewing YouTube channel. She's an Australian designer, Australian sewist, and her channel is amazing. The vibes are like so relaxing. She's so sweet. It's amazing. And she has this free pattern for beginners, and I'm so surprised with how they turned out and how they like look like shorts. They are a little bit too big in the waist, so when I was like measuring the waistband elastic that I was cutting out, I should have gone snugger. Like I still am like getting used to that. And I also so I don't have a serger or overlocker or anything, but I very quickly discovered why you have to overlock things. I basically was like, I don't feel like doing that zigzag stitch, which is like if you don't have a serger or an overlap or an overlocker, you can do a zigzag stitch on your sewing machine to like seal in the seams. And I didn't do that on everything on the inside because I was like, sure, like, is that really necessary? Yes, it is necessary. And then I washed it in the washing machine. And look at my seams. They're like fraying. So that's why that's why it's important to actually finish your seams. So I learned that project number one. So I either want to get because I really do not like doing that zigzag stitch. I'm either going to invest in an overlocker or just make sure, just like, be a big girl and actually just do the zigzag stitch over everything. But yeah, I'm really happy with them, and this worked out well enough that I went and bought a ton of fabric from Joann's that was on sale. I think it was like 20 to 30% off because they are going out of business. And so I kind of was like slight panic buying where I was like, I want to get into sewing, and I need access to fabric at first, at least before. I think like once I sew a bit, I might feel more confident buying fabric online, which I think is what a lot of people do. But yeah, I'm really excited to get into this hobby. I won't go through I might do that in a later video. Like all the fabric that I bought. I'm not gonna go get that right now because this video is already really long. But yeah, I will occasionally share with you guys my sewing finished objects. Never any WIPs because I feel like it's not really a thing with sewing. Like it's so different from knitting. Like I did this in one day. And I also have been like the sewing patterns are more expensive than knitting patterns, which I was really surprised by because again, like you can sew something more quickly than you can knit something. So for some reason I was expecting sewing patterns to be cheaper, but I think honestly it just shows you how undervalued knitting patterns are. Like knitting patterns should definitely be more expensive than they are because of how much work goes into it. So yeah, like sewing patterns are like $15. Like this was a free one, but I bought some sewing patterns on my like intro to sewing extravaganza that I've gone on. And yeah, sewing patterns are like 3 times expensive, or 2 to 4, I think 2 to 4 times as expensive as knitting patterns. So that was kind of, yeah, I don't really know. all of the like logistics and details into why that is, but I think part of it is because knitting patterns should be more expensive than they are. So based off of like how much work goes into them, but obviously if, you know, like, unfortunately, the way it is that if a knitting designer made their pattern like super duper expensive, people probably wouldn't buy it because it's in comparison, you know, it's like a market thing. If someone can buy a $5 pattern or a $15 pattern, they're probably going to buy the $5 pattern. And so then you're kind of limited by what like everyone else is doing. So anyways, that's a whole issue that we're not going to get into. But that was something that I noticed very immediately and was kind of surprised by, was that sewing patterns are so much more expensive than knitting patterns. And I was not expecting that. So that brings us to the end today for this really big catch up. I'm really hoping that the next time it's not going to be quite as long, but I don't think that I'm going to do, for the past like couple months leading up into this like unintentional break, I was making a video about once a week, and I don't think that's probably what I'm going to do in the near future, just because of my work intensity is increasing even more lately. And so I think I'm gonna aim for a video every 2 weeks, and so it's probably gonna be a podcast once a month, and then in between the podcasts some other video like knitting plans or like stash or whatever. So if there's any like knitting podcast type videos, like any of those like extra type of videos that you're interested in seeing, definitely please let me know in the comments. Yeah, it was so fun to chat with you guys today. I definitely missed doing this, and I'm also like kind of excited to edit this video. I do enjoy editing, but I don't know if I would say I'm excited to do it usually, but I'm actually excited to edit this video because it's been so long. And yeah, I missed you guys. I missed doing this. So happy to be back and talking about crafting again, and I will hopefully be back in about 2 weeks with something else other than a knitting podcast, and a podcast in about once a month, which honestly that will mean that I will have, you know, theoretically a finished object like every time. I mean, that Sookie cardigan, I'm already on the sleeves, so that's going to be done in probably like a week and a half or a week, something like that. So yeah, I hope you all had an amazing past month, and with that I'm going to send lots of big hugs to everyone, and I will see you next time. Bye.